This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
A friend of mine in Tasmania, on the Monday, she wasn't under a package and it cost her $20 to use community services to get to her game of bridge. At the end of the week, she was on a package. Her package was billed $120, get her in the same car to the same venue. She then was faced with the fact that she was probably not going to be able to afford out of her package.
Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday, the pod that fearlessly chats about all things affecting us ladies who are 40 plus fabulous.
Well, and the guys that want to know what we think.
Well, them too. I'm Janet Evans, advertising creative.
And I'm Jenny Woodhouse, semi-retired social worker.
In other words, you're busier than ever. We're J&J and we're super thrilled you're with us for She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Gorgeous. Over the next 20 years, the number of Aussies aged 65 plus fabulous is meant to double to well over 6.6 million. That's a lot of us.
That's a lot of us.
Fabulous older type
Yep.
people. And on the 1st of November 2025, the Australian government introduced big reforms to aged home care with what's called support at home. Now, the rhetoric around this, which, is government rhetoric, so we possibly will understand some of these words and possibly not.
Give it a go.
We'll give it a go. But the benefits are supposed to be helping older adult Australians stay independent, safe and comfortable in familiar surroundings with enhanced dignity, mental and emotional well-being, all managed under a simpler, more flexible system.
Whoa.
It sounds great. I'm not sure that I want to be in a flexible system.
What is a flexible system?
I don't know, but I
Okay.
just want to be cared for. But it sounds great. But to help us home in on what this really means for us and our ageing loved ones, today we are very, very privileged to chat with the chair of the Older Women's Network New South Wales, Beverly Baker. A massive welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
Welcome, Beverly.
Thank you very much. Can I just get a correction there? I'm the president of the National Older Women's Network. I was the chair when we organised this. I was the chair of New South Wales. My term of office finished and I'm now no longer the chair, but I'm still the president of the National Older Women's Network.
Wow.
Thank you for
Whatever
clarifying.
it sounds
We
very, very
have
important.
no clue what that means.
It also sounds like you know exactly
Yes.
what you're talking about.
That's good. Yes.
But it's great because your core values of the network are to provide older women with a blueprint for growing old with dignity and well-being, consistent with the concepts of positive and healthy ageing, which we love that for us.
Yes.
But really, what does this new support at home package mean for people who are going to sort of age in place?
Look, I'm really sorry to have to say that it is a complete and utter mess.
No.
It started off with such terrific intent. The Aged Care Royal Commission really exposed the disgraceful behaviours that were going on, both in home care and in the aged care sector. The working parties worked on it. I have no idea where they got their advice from to implement this model. I do know that the discussion was that if you're on a pension, your costs should be starting from 0 and going to 5%. For some reason, that's morphed into starting at 5% and going to 17%. That's a massive impost when it comes to pensioners. It would appear that 90% of what we're hearing is spin and not reality. We're being told that you'll be assessed. Terrific. What's the point of assessing me if I've still got to wait for 2 or 3 years for a service? We know the providers don't have enough. We know that the providers have got 12 months in which they can charge what they like before the cost limits come in. People on pensions and people who are needing aged care and are going into aged care are so confused, and it really is a mess. There's a whole belief that baby boomers are rich and they can afford to pay for all of this stuff that they need, which is not the truth. Now, I'm old enough and ugly enough to have been around long enough to know when a government says we're going to increase the service and it's going to save us money, the only way that happens is cost shifting. So they're talking about expanded aged care system that is going to save something like $13 billion, that means that $13 billion is coming out of someone's pocket.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beverly, how is it different from the previous aged care system?
The words are different because the previous aged care system was very much focused on what the provider wanted, what the provider needed. Mm-hmm. And this aged care system is based supposedly on a rights-based, and it's human rights-based, which gives people the capacity and the right to negotiate for their own care and say what it is they want. So they aren't going to be treated like victims or children, but they are empowered. And they can nominate an advocate, someone who will speak on their behalf, if they want someone to speak on their behalf, which is terrific. And to have an Aged Care Act that is based on rights is terrific, except in Australia we do not have a Bill of Rights. We are signatory to the Declaration on the Human Rights, but we have no underpinning legislation. The changes that were made to the Act exclude any kind of civil action against providers for not delivering the service they are saying they're providing. So to me, looking at it, it's probably the worst of both worlds because you've got all the right words. You've got the empowerment of people, and you're talking about a generation, our generation, who aren't going to be pushed around. We're not going to be subservient and quiet and go along without fighting. We've been fighting all our lives. So suddenly we've got an act that says the right things, but what's underpinning that act is things that are disempowering, that are making sure that we can't stay in our own home, that is making it so difficult for us to get the services we need, which are just small services 90% of the time. And then on top of that, the Meals on Wheels and community transport and those community-based services are going to be rolled into this nightmare in 2027. And those functions, those things work. They're community-based, community-delivered, community-operated, and they work and they're cheaper. So who was ever doing the number crunching had a look at that and said, oh, look, we can deliver this much cheaper, but we'll give it to the providers who don't do it much cheaper. I mean, just as an example, a friend of mine in Tasmania, on the Monday, she wasn't under a package, and it cost her $20 to use community services to get to her game of bridge. At the end of the week, she was on a package. The following Monday, her package was billed $120, get her in the same car to the same venue. She then was faced with the fact that she was probably not going to be able to afford, out of her package, to pay to go to her bridge game, which was a big part of her social. Well, it was what she did as social connection, where she had her friends. Instead of the provider saying, you know what, let's have a look at this and do this better, what they said is, let's have a look at this and we'll get you on a bigger package. So your package will be big enough to cover that. So the provider gets a lot richer. She still gets to where she wants to go, but it also disempowers her, because if I quote her name and where she's from, suddenly her package is at risk, and she will not be able to get to the one thing that really means a lot to her, which is her social activity.
Why did it go up? Like, who put that up from 20 to 100? The providers.
Right. The providers. And because the providers are saying that even though it's a community transport, they're saying that's what they're going to bill us and that's what we have to bill you. Whereas if you were just and you rang the community transport, they would bill you 20. So there's funding and cross-gouging, and it really is. And people just don't know. We've had evidence of providers demanding that if people don't sign their new contracts, they will be booted off the system, which again is a lie. You have 90 days to sign your contract. You've got 90 days to look at it. But some of these contracts are 90 pages long. You're dealing with people who have no background in law. So we're sending these people over to the Senior Rights Service to get them to have a look at the contract. Because as you know, with every contract, the devil's in the detail. And if you sign up, you've got no idea what your escape clause might be, how much it's going to cost you if you don't like that provider anymore. And it's predicated on the belief that if you don't like that provider, you can change providers. Try doing that in Blaney or in, Moorcroft or any of those small places where there's one provider, and if you don't like what they're doing, bad luck. That's who you're stuck with.
But there were genuine problems with the old existing aged care system, weren't there? And so was there a genuine attempt to try and solve those problems with the support at home thing? Because support at home sounds so fantastic, doesn't it? I mean, I get support at home. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to go into some sort of, aged care facility or anything like that. How is it not working? What's been the problem?
Look, I'll probably get sued for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The problem with the old system was it was provider directed. The problem with the new system is it's provider directed. It's the same problem. It's just got more money attached to it, more and more access. And close enough the person's ringing up and saying, how do I negotiate this? Where do I go? How do I get it? This is impossible. And so we've been told we've got, you'll be assessed within 3 months. So you're assessed, you're told what your package is. Like a friend in Queensland had a heart attack, or not a heart attack, but a heart issue. She was in hospital. She came out and she contacted the provider to say, look, I'm perfectly happy to look after my husband and myself. I just need help because I've had a heart attack and I can't do it. They came and assessed her for a level 2 package, but told her she had 6 months to wait. She needed the help then and there, and it would have been a short period of help, not a long period. She didn't need to be on the thing forever. Once she got herself back on her feet, she's fiercely independent, she would have taken it back over. But that wasn't an option. So then she's stuck on this wait list, waiting to get somebody to come in. And all she wants is someone to come in and help her clean up and help her in the shower, because her husband can't do that. And it's not a big ask, but we're on a package and here's what your package is worth, but you have to wait before you get your package.
And is that the case with every single package?
Every single package except the people who were on the grandfathered clause. Every single package.
Okay.
So the issue there is actually having to wait for the package to be approved rather than wait for the provider to be ready, willing and able to provide.
No, it's actually the other way around. The package could be approved within 3 months and you could be waiting a year for the provider to be able to provide the service. And that was the same problem as we had with the old package. My father was 98, fiercely independent, living in his own home. He was assessed because he didn't tell the truth about what his needs were as a level 2 package. When it became obvious that that's what he'd done, we called the provider back and they went, oh no, he's really a level 4, which then was the top level of service. He was a gold card holder from a veterans card holder. They told a 98-year-old man it could be anything up to 3 years wait before they had the service to provide him with a level 4 package. I know there's a lot more of us living over 100, but I really wasn't expecting my father to go to 101 living in his own home.
Just nuts. That's nuts.
Waiting to have a shower.
It's nuts. And the same as it's nuts for my friend in Queensland. That's nuts. She needs someone now to come in and help her whilst she needs it, and she can't get it.
So are a lot of people who are in her position, are a lot of them paying for it out of their own pockets in the interim to be the stopgap? Yeah, right. And if you can't,
you wait. And what happens whilst you're waiting is that you start deteriorating. You start getting sicker. And then the next thing is that you are no longer able to stay in your own home and you end up in aged care. Now, if you're poor, the number of places in aged care is dwindling. They're going after the high net worth clients or people who've got assets they can sell to buy a room and then use their super to pay for stuff. If you are a working woman in your 80s who need that care, we're not talking about somebody that's hoarded their super. We're talking about women who are living on the pension, are paying rent, desperately looking for a place to go. So their first step is the hospital. They fall over, they go to hospital. They can't go home. If they're assessed as not being fit to go home, they can't go home. They can't go back into their place. They are then being called bed blockers because they're in hospital waiting for a position in a nursing home that the positions are dwindling in. So and here we are. We've known about baby boomers since 1946. Well, at least 1950, we knew there was a bunch of them. And we also knew that we were working flat out to improve our medical care this should come as no surprise to people. The people are going, oh, look at all the old people we're getting. What did you expect? You know, it's...
Applying for aged care packages. Imagine that.
And as we said, they're going to be 6 million. There's 3 million of us now. There's going to be 6.6 million of us in not too long distant future. That's going to be a cost.
That's right. Yeah.
If I have my elderly mother in the hospital and she's had a fall and we're all waiting for her to stop being a bed blocker, who do I jump up and down in front of and scream at to try and get her into somewhere?
Into the thing. Your local politician. The only way we're going to get through this is to make it personal, because people are listening to the spin. I mean, it sounds wonderful when you read the stuff.
It sounds great. Yes.
If you read the Director General's report, it absolutely is scathing in what's going on. So that's the person who's employed to look after this, and she's going, it's broken. It's broken. We've got to do something else. Now, I don't know, as I said, I don't know who gave the government the advice, but it certainly wasn't the workshops and the think tanks and the people who were sitting around the table to say, this is wrong, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to happen this way, and what we needed to do about it. That's not who they listened to. It went back to Parliament, and things like your right not to be charged if you are chemically restrained. Now, it's only in an aged care facility that you can be chemically restrained. Look, usually it's a drug that sends you from being this grumpy old lady to being somebody asleep in your chair, is what it is.
Right, yes.
So that you're not a problem anymore. You know, you're not an issue. You're not out there, you know, organising and getting people to join petitions and stomp to say they want, you know, better care. You're asleep in your room because you've been drugged.
Okay. You're restrained. Right.
Beverly, the government claims the upsides of supported home are supposed to be more funding levels for complex needs, better access to assessments and reassessments as your needs change, the restorative care pathway to maintain and improve independence.
That sounds nice.
At the end of life pathway with extra funding to support older people to stay at home in their last 3 months of life. I mean, that all sounds absolutely amazing.
It has the potential to be absolutely amazing. It is what we want and what we've asked for. But what we're facing at the moment is nothing like that. Absolutely nothing like that.
Because of money? Or
a number of things. A lack of service. There's nobody out there to deliver the service. And whilst we've got a lack of people out there to deliver the service, we've got, on the other hand, a whole pile of people jumping up and down saying, we don't want any more refugees. Well, guess who's doing the work? You know, if we don't bring the people in to do the work, it's not going to be done. We've got, it really is that kind of mishmash where people have one thing to say but don't think about what it actually means in terms of being delivered.
Yeah, right.
You know, the assessment, people are bragging that they've got all of these assessments out and this is going to be terrific. I mean, I don't know how much you pay for your housekeeper if you have a housekeeper, but I don't pay $120 an hour for my housekeeper.
I'd like to be paid $120 an hour. But I'll keep your housekeeper.
Career for you, yes.
But if you need somebody to come and help you clean your house, which is a health issue, it's going to cost you that. It's going to cost you a percentage of that, depending on how much money you've got. And that's what they're taking off the taxpayers is $120. That's what's in your package. But they're not paying the person to do that cleaning at $120, but it's charging you that $120. So all the way down the line, there's ad cost, on costs, more costs, a whole range of things that are really turning people off and really frightening them. Really frightening them, because the older you get, the more you know that what you've got is probably all you're ever going to get. You aren't going to be able to rush out and have a job, because I can remember being 40 and my attitude is when I was 40 was I didn't care what the thing was. I would be the last person working because I will do anything. You know, at 75, I'm going to be the first one out the door. You know, it's just like, I can't do that. No, that's not happening. Yeah. The older you get, you know, it's not hoarding. I don't know how long I've got from now. I could walk out the door tomorrow and be hit by a bus, or I could be my father and live till I was 99. Another 20-odd years of trying to live on the assets that I have. So all of these things that you've got to pay for after you've used your one or your two, that's all an added cost to people. So then people are saying, well, can I afford to have someone help me come in and prepare my meals? You know, it's that level all the time of how much have I got? How much is it going to cost me? Can I afford it? Oh, no, I can't. What am I going to do? And it really is an absolutely confused muddle. And we really do need to really, really have a look at this and find out where the money's going and stop it being frittered away.
So is it more stressful now for an older person than it was before November?
Yes. Look,
Right.
yes and no. There are more levels, but it is more stressful because you've got as many hoops as you ever had to go through. And you're being handed huge contracts, which you weren't handed before because the provider was, this is what the government said you're worth. Here's your local provider. Off you go. But now you're supposed to shop around and find the best provider. And if that one's no good, find another one, except that's the only one in town, so I can't find another one. And those sorts of market-based ideology, which simply doesn't work across a country as vast as Australia. And even in somewhere like Brisbane, if you are 15 kilometres outside of Brisbane, you can't get the service you need. People are moving from the suburbs to try to move into the city so they can get the services. And there's not enough people to provide the services. So there's still not services.
So what are these? So you said there's 8 levels. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that levels of like needs?
What you need. So a level 1 or a level 2 means you've got a really low level need, like my friend in Queensland. Really, really low level of need, but still a massive delay so that when the service comes, she probably won't need it. Because let's hope she stays well enough, but she really does need that help now. Because added to the fact that you can't get a house cleaned is the stress of not having your house cleaned. And we know that stress impacts on your health and your well-being. And it really is a complete cyclone that's just sucking everybody into it, and who knows where they fly out.
We also heard that depending whether you're a pensioner or a part pensioner or a self-funded retiree, we could be paying up to 80% of the provider fees for these non-clinical services you're talking about, like cooking, cleaning, laundry, etc. And then it's interesting because the Inspector General of Aged Care, which sounds like a very important role, Natalie Siegel-Brown reckons that by charging these bigger co-contributions, some elderly Aussies will choose to forego basic health and hygiene needs like what you were talking about, which in turn will impact on, for example, the hospital system and the residential aged care system, therefore costing taxpayers more anyway.
Money,
Yeah. So, I mean, do you, in your opinion, is the supported home thing just a short-term kind of fix that's been seized on as kind of a solution?
Look, I don't think it's a short-term fix that's been seized on as a solution. I think it's a long-term fix that has been seized by providers to get richer. Don't forget that 90% of our providers are foreign-owned, so that for every dollar that's spent, at least 30 cents is going over to the directors and the owners of those facilities. It's not being spent for the service for which it's needed. So you've got this whole privatisation agenda that's in there that used to be run by charities that have been now bought up. If you have anything to do with the share market and you say, where do I put my shares? They're telling you to put it into social infrastructure because it's privatised and that's where the profits are. And this is really about ensuring the profits for that sector. And this was part of the whole debate. You know, you and I are old enough to remember when every single person could have a house because we had public housing and they were being built and you could move into them. Now it's a market. People are reaping the profit of capital gains, not turning them into homes for people. Now, are we looking at the same scenario in the aged care sector? Do we need to keep increasing the prices so the profitability remains the same so that people then will keep running the places? And we're already seeing people swapping their aged care facilities into lifestyle choices or lifestyle villages because they haven't got the same controls on them as aged care facilities do. So if you're in an aged care facility, that room cost has to come back to your heirs and successors when you fall off the perch.
Yes.
Right.
If you're in a lifestyle village, absolutely no guarantee. You've got no rights. And if they don't have to sell it to give you your money back.
Okay.
I've always wanted a lifestyle, but maybe not.
Not in a lifestyle
Not that one.
village.
Not
No,
that
not that
one.
one.
Look, aged care is a massively growing industry.
Yes.
And we've really got to be sensible how we fund it. I mean, as older people, we don't begrudge younger women getting childcare and getting the stuff that they need, because we know when we were their age how much we needed that, and we didn't have it. But the trouble is they can't imagine themselves at our age. No one can. I keep looking in the mirror and having a heart attack because I still think I'm 24. It's not what you expect to see looking back out at you. And young people can't imagine themselves older because you just can't. Like, when I'm old, I'll never do that. Yes, you will. That kind of, and they don't believe you because that's just too hard to imagine that they are going to think or feel or act or be less strong than they are now. I mean, that was one thing my father said to me, the trouble with you, Bev, that's how he started every conversation, I have to say. It was always, the trouble with you is that I know what it's like to be your age. You have no idea what it's like to be mine. And that the truest words he has ever said to me. And he's right. And I understand it now at 75 more than I ever did at 30, more than and I don't know the type of person I'm going to be at 99 if I get that far. I imagine I'm a stroppy, cranky old woman walking around with an umbrella donging people on the head. But then again, I might be a nice, benign old lady smiling along and knitting baby socks. I don't know.
What would you prefer? No, we won't go there. I know what I'd prefer.
I think the stroppy old cow, I think I've worked on that.
Yeah. 75 years. But do you think a lot of this is just teething problems and that it's being monitored and that changes are going to be made, if it doesn't meet expectations for support at home?
Look, the best part of me says I hope so. The worst part of me says it's structurally incorrect and we need to do something about it. So my best hope is that as it evolves and as the Director General recognised, as everyone who's been advising and working and sitting on panels have recognised, that this is broken before it's even started.
Right.
We really need to rethink this completely. And whether we do that, it's easier to do it in increments, but people will fall through the cracks, than it is to just wipe the slate and start again, because then everyone will fall through the cracks. So I'm really hoping that with goodwill and decency, we will work through the issues, because at the end of your life, you really don't need this pressure. You really don't need this lack of security and lack of assuredness. You really do need just to be able to enjoy being an old person and, pottering around and doing whatever you want to do, whether that's joining Rising Tide or, going to the hospital and doing, wonderful things that they're doing with knitting and things for women with breast cancer and stuff. It's the time of life where you should be able to do the things that you wanted to do, but you didn't have time when you were raising your family and earning a living and doing all those things. It should be a time of empowerment, of joy and of contributing and of giving back. That's what this time of life is about. And if you're spending all your time worrying whether or not you're going to be able to afford to have a shower, what's going to happen to me if I have a fall, what's going to happen to me if the contract rips me off, you can't do any of the things that are really powerful things that you do as you get older.
So true.
Yeah. So if you're already on a home care package from before the grandfathered ones, are you affected? How are you affected?
You're not affected by this, apparently.
Oh, okay.
It's whatever you had on the old package, that will remain in place.
Okay.
There's a lot of confusion as to whether or not, if you need to upgrade your package, whether you will still be treated as a grandfather and moved along, or whether you'll be then on the new stuff.
Right.
So that's the confusion is around there. But if you're on a grandfathered package, the funding model that you are on will be maintained and will continue, which means no co-contributions for whatever services you are on, unless that was unless that was part of your package, unless you took something extra that needed a co-contribution. But most of the time, no.
So the co-contributions are the key difference between the new and the old. Yeah, and it's all scaled as to how much you pay depending on your assets.
Absolutely. So the first discussions for people on the pension was 0 to 5%.
Yeah,
that was what your co-contribution would be. It's now 5% to 17%. That's a massive increase for people on the pension. So everything that's not clinical, you're going to be up for 5%.
And is it different from 5 to 17%? What pushes it up to 10% or 12%. Is that what the provider is asking for?
Yeah. There's
Right.
2 levels of charge. The provider can charge you 10% for this to provide the package, and then they can charge you for every invoice 10% on that invoice, which means it's a 20% charge.
If you're a self-funded retiree, you have to pay for 100% of everything. Is that right? Or
80%. It just depends on what it is.
Right.
But
Okay.
at 80%, if you're self-funded, and a part of because we've got a couple of people, and I only mean a couple of people, with millions in their super, they have been used as the model. The bulk of us don't have that in our super. For women, we've got roughly $130,000 in our super when we retire at 67. You can't add anything more after 75. You can't continue to work and fill up your super because you hit 75 and it's like, no, can't make any extra contributions. So that's all you've got.
Yeah.
And if you are fortunate enough to have your own home, then you've got a lot more support. But if you need your home modified, $15,000 is all you are given for a lifetime modification. Shower modifications, you might have to take a bath out so that people don't have to step in a bath. You might have to expand the doorway so people can get through. Separate railings going down a ramp at the front of your house to get in and out. If you're only allowed $15,000 once, you're not doing a lot of renovations to your house.
Yeah.
If you are in rental accommodation, you've got to get your landlord to agree to it. And there's no guarantee after you've spent your 15 grand doing up the place, there's nothing to stop the landlord saying, well, thanks very much. I'm now putting this on the market for a higher market because it's disabled access. There's no protection for you if you're in a rental accommodation at all.
Now, Beverly, you were telling us earlier that you are the president of the Older Women's Network.
Yes.
Congratulations. Just can you give us a little bit of an idea about what the Older Women's Network does?
The Older Women's Network is a state-based organisation. In Queensland, there's about 19 different groups across the state. In New South Wales, about 23. Western Australia, about 3. And what they do is they sit down with the older women. Older women come together and say, okay, this is what we would like to do. And then whatever they would like to do, that's what that particular group does. And it depends on the number and the interests within the group. The bigger groups will have 5 or 6, 10, 15 different activities that bring women in so that they can come in. If they want to go to the movies, they've got a network of people they know and trust they can go to the movies with. If they want to do a book club, anything like that. We've got one group here that simply the volunteers in that group go through and list every single activity that's on in their community. And then they publish a newsletter that says, if you're interested in yoga, blah, 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 and list all of the yoga activities if you want to do a book club. And that's what they do so that older women can just go, okay, let's have a look at that. Oh, yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that. So they actually facilitate older women meeting people, getting out, socialising and doing things that they'd like to do. We've got one huge group in the Southern Highlands that just have gardening, walking groups, they have knitting groups, book clubs, they have movie nights, they have dinner clubs, just anything that people want to do so that if you want to do it, and basically would you like to do that? Okay, you organise it. And so they were, okay, I will. And it builds up the friendships and the networks, it builds up your skills and being able to do those sorts of things. And it gets you back into your society and gets you back out doing things. And that's its strength because we really fundamentally believe that growing old is a privilege and growing old should be with dignity, respect and well-being, that they are things that are absolutely essential. At the federal level, we are purely a lobby group. We are purely there to get in the way of people who are doing stuff that's going to hurt old ladies. And we are, it doesn't matter where they are, we're in your face.
Yeah, you've got your umbrella ready to whack them.
And does that include lobbying about the support at home? Are you able to influence what might happen there?
Look, we will join with anybody and talk to anybody about anything. And we have a large network of people who are really, really concerned about the support at home stuff. And especially about the loss of things like Meals on Wheels and community transport. Our big focus is going to be on trying to change the government's mind from rolling those into providers and leaving them with the charities who run them.
Right, right.
Because they are run, and I'm sure that's what the modelling was used when they went down this path. They looked at what it cost for Meals on Wheels, community transport, which is really a small amount of money because it's all run by volunteers and charities, and then said, oh, that's how much it's going to cost us to deliver that through providers. Well, no, it's costing a lot more to deliver it through providers.
Service is still available to people if they want to use it?
Not after 2027, no. They're all being rolled in. And a lot of Meals on Wheels in areas are shutting down because they know because they operate on a shoestring. You know, there's just not enough funding. And then when they know that it's going to close, why would they be recruiting volunteers if they know that they're not going to be there anymore?
Yeah.
So it's really looking at how you ensure that the sorts of stuff that we need, which is not for 90% of us, it's short-term care. It's not long-term care. We just need someone to come in and help us if we've fallen over or if we're unwell or something that's happened, that we just need someone to give us a bit of a hand and then they can go away. You're assessed to say you need it, but it's done immediately. But if I was to ring up and say, fallen down the stairs, can somebody come and help me get my meals ready? They'd say Meals on Wheels will be around on Friday or Saturday or Sunday or wherever and come and do it. And Meals on Wheels have been a phenomenal resource in terms of community. And for some old people, that's the only social contact they get because they are housebound. And the Meals on Wheel person comes, knocks on the door, "G'day, Fred, how's it going? What have you been doing today?" Here's a meal, do you need some help with this? And they help. Yeah. And they become a real friend of the person in the home. And I'm not saying private providers do that. I'm seeing what happened to my father, which was unconscionable. He was 98, he didn't answer the door. They had the code to the key, rang me and said, "Your father's not answering the door." I said, "Here's the code. Please go in and check on him, make sure that he's all right, 98. And I said, "And give me a ring if he's not." I never heard back from them. And so half an hour later, I should have heard something. So I rang my father again, no answer. So I rang the provider. And the provider said, "Oh, no, they didn't go in. That's not their job. They've gone to service someone else." So I'm left in Redfern and my father's out in the western suburbs, absolutely beating the world speed record to get out there because there was, and luckily enough, he had a friend in the area and I rang her and said, "I can't raise Dad. The stupid provider has pulled the carer." She was there to give him a shower. She didn't even go in to check if he was all right. Yeah, and took off. And she got in her car. We both and I rang the ambulance. So the ambulance and I all turned up the same time. And my father had been laying on the floor of a fibro cottage in the western suburb since 3:00 in the morning in the middle of winter. He was blue. And that should never have happened. That should have been picked up when she got there, not when I got there 2 hours later. He survived it. He survived it. But in hindsight, his surviving it was probably the worst outcome because he couldn't go home anymore. Had he passed on the floor, he would have died happy. As happy as you could be freezing to death, I suppose. But he would have died in his own home. He wouldn't have had to have been uprooted. He wouldn't have had to go to a nursing home. He hated the loss of agency. He spent the last 2 years of his life really, really unhappy. And I wouldn't wish that.
No, it sounds like the support at home bit just isn't that at all, is it? It's support for providers. They should change the name to that.
Yes. Yes, good idea. Financial support for providers. Yeah. Okay.
So if we're caring for ageing parents ourselves or, looking for support ourselves, what do you suggest we do? I mean, how can we make the most of this new initiative or make it work for us? Is there a way?
Look, I think the first thing you should do is don't raise your hopes for it being brilliant. Find out who your local providers are. First, you've got to be assessed. So you've got to ring the ACAT assessor who will come round and assess what your needs will be. When they've done that, they should then give you a list of people who provide that service within your area.
Right.
I would then ring each of those providers and ask them what their charges are, what their services are, how long the wait lists are, all of those sorts of things, which are really, really important. Once you've decided on that, that's when you get the contract, and that's when you go to Senior Rights Service and say, tell me what's wrong with this contract.
My 90 pages worth of contract. Yes.
Yeah. So, and it's really, I guess it's don't swallow the spin.
Right.
Recognise that this is a service in short supply and it's not going to be easy. And start from that premise. And so then you go, you've got to do MyGov and you've got to get registered here and go through there and do all of those things. So just know that that's what's facing you. If you are looking at an aged care place for your parents, the first thing to do is to go in with your nose, because you can smell places that aren't really up to scratch in spite of what they say. Because old people, if you are incontinent, there will be that smell. And so you get to know whether or not the people are really being looked after in those facilities. Find out what the cost is, because it may well be you will have to sell your parents' home, if there is only one of them, to buy a room in a unit. And that has changed now, because it used to be that it didn't matter how long they stayed in the care, at the end of the care, whatever they paid for that unit would go back to the heirs and successors. Now, after 5 years, they can start taking a percentage of that out to keep, which,
Who's they? Who takes
the aged care providers.
Right.
So and we had this fight, would have been about 15 years ago, where the aged care providers, you'd pay, say, $300,000 for a room. That's a dream, nonetheless. You pay that, and then when you'd go to get it back, you'd get $250,000 back, because they'd have taken all of this stuff out. That was pulled up and stopped, and they had to give you 100% back. If the room was if you put $300,000 in, they had to give you $300,000 back. So that because they had the use of that room, plus they had the money. So the money could be invested for the period of time. They could get the interest on that. They could expand, do whatever. They have now convinced the government that that's not viable. And so therefore, if a person lives for longer than 5 years, they can then start taking some of that deposit, room deposit, and start using that, taking that away, so that and some of those rooms are 1.5 million now. So, and they claim that it's not, and they're not making money. But when you look at the salaries of the CEO of a lot of these big providers, when they're taking home $17 million a year, someone's making a profit somewhere.
Yeah,
so really,
Wow.
yeah. So it's got the potential to be really good, but it's now up to all of us to involve the people making the decisions to make sure it is good.
Sounds like a full-time job getting older.
Look, it is. And it's absolutely worthwhile. It's wonderful.
That's excellent. Excellent.
Beverly, are there any places around the world that are doing this really well, in your opinion?
Yes, the Scandinavian countries are certainly doing it well. Japan does it really well. Japan has had an ageing population for a long time. They do it really, really well. And a lot of that's because the governments are involved in the provision of the service rather than just paying for the service. And that's the big break in ours, is that the governments are involved in paying for the service rather than providing the service. And we've seen that around education. We've seen that around hospitals. We're seeing it in aged care, because we've swallowed the privatised Kool-Aid, and we're finding it really hard to spit that back out and really spit it out. We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And what can we do, sitting in our lounge rooms listening to this podcast, what can we do to help? What? Where do we go? What do we do?
Earn more money while you can.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking out.
Look, the thing, we live in a political system where politicians are working as flat out as they can to separate themselves from the decisions that they're making. Our job is to pull them back into the decision. Everybody will know somebody who is suffering from this. Everybody will know somebody who is having a hard time. Take their stories, go to your local politician and say, this happened to my friend. And therefore they've got those stories, and they can feel the fact that this is going through their communities and they are going to be held accountable for it. And It sounds, like I'm a raging activist, but it really is. The only way you can get politicians to take responsibility for the decisions they make is to hold them accountable. And
Or
this
maybe it's about each of us getting a network of people in our circles and getting a big sort of petition together so that it's got numbers behind it rather than just an individual letter or something which they can just dismiss. I don't know.
Mind you, an individual story goes a long way.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So have a look around your area and find out how many providers you've got in your area. What's the wait times for provision? How many aged care facilities have? How many of those are offering places for people who are on pensions and poor people? Get that data at a local level. That's the data that you need, and that's the data that will impact.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, Beverly, thank you so much for clarifying what this whole support at home thing means. We did swallow the government rhetoric Kool-Aid, as you say, but which sounded so good and so promising. But now we're understanding a little bit more about when the rubber hits the road. So basically, we plan not to get old at all.
Yes.
We're, don't be over 40. Just get rich quick. And,
own several homes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
With lots and lots of carers.
You won't be able to get support at home in any of the homes.
Right.
That's true. Yes.
But thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank
She wasn't
you.
born yesterday.
No, it's my pleasure.
Thanks, Beverly.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Janet, we love hearing from people, don't we?
Even more than I love you.
So to leave us a message, go to hope1032.com.au, She Wasn't Born Yesterday podcast, and hit us up on the little get in touch box at the bottom of the page.
Doing that right now.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Hope 1032. Thanks for listening.